Welcome back to Rapid Regeneration. I'm Dave Escamilla. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not making any medical claims or claims about diseases, nor is my guest. Here we have with us, again, the great Seth Baillin, author of The Fruit Companion, host of Radial Health Podcast. You've heard his other programs on Rapid Regeneration talking about The Fruit Companion, how to get good fruits, talking about overcoming asthma, overcoming chronic colds, pneumonia, skin conditions, allergies, and being able to solve all those problems for himself. So you've heard his story, but what you didn't know about Seth is that he went deep into this thing called natural hygiene, and I really want to talk to him about that today. So Seth, thank you so much for being with us again.
Thanks, Dave.
So we talked in our other segment where we learned about your story and how you were sick for your whole life until you got to this point in your early 30s and you made a decision, I'm going to figure this out, how to solve this. And then you went into like a deep chapter where you were like a sponge and you were soaking in information. And can you talk to us a little more about that?
Absolutely. First, I've always loved information. I've always been into nonfiction books. Those have been my favorite. I love podcasts and documentaries, and I love learning. So it was the fateful year 2020 when everything went haywire. I don't even like using the C word. I think it's a misnomer anyway. So I'm just going to say 2020. We all know what happened then. I discovered a Facebook group called Terrain Model Refutes Germ Theory. And I mentioned Facebook groups in the other segments about how beneficial they are to me just to join these different groups and communities online and share ideas with people who have the similar interests as you. So terrain model is sort of another word for natural hygiene. It's another term coined by Lauren Whiteman. Terrain model, natural hygiene, life science, they're all very, very similar. And I didn't understand that it was sort of a tradition. These writers have been developing this science of natural hygiene for 150 years, at least, going back to Isaac Jennings in the 1800s. He wrote The Tree of Life, which is beautiful. And he writes about how the human body is a self-healer, and that the tree of life is this energy that's bubbling forth from every cell. And I think that is the main tenet of natural hygiene, that the human body and life in general is self-healing, that all life has in it built in a self-healing mechanism, right? So if you scratch your skin and there's an abrasion there, what do you have to do in order for that to heal?
Nothing.
You have to keep it clean, pretty much.
You just have to get out of the way, right?
You have to get out of the way. And that is the biggest secret of health, is that to allow the body to heal, we don't have to tell it, we don't have to inform it, we don't have to instruct it with any particular drug or medicine or herb or activity, other than the cessation of inputs and the cessation of whatever's causing this burden that's causing symptoms.
And cessation, you mean stop doing it?
Yes, to cease. Cessation. So natural hygiene is about recognizing that the body has a certain threshold, and if you'd like to read about this in simple terms, there's a great book from 1926 called Toxemia Explained, and it's incredible. I mean, this is one of the fundamental texts of natural hygiene because he puts it so well, the ideas and the philosophy and the practice, because John Tilden was a doctor for 50 years, the majority of which he was doing drugless, right? So for the first 20 years of his medical career, he was administering drugs and prescribing them for his patients for their illnesses. He went through a transformation himself and ditched all the drugs and started prescribing his patients fasting, warm baths, fresh air, walking, basic stuff to just realign us with nature and to remove some of the inputs. So if some of the harsh inputs were like coal-filled workplace, right? If you're a coal miner, well, the cessation of being in that environment, meaning removing yourself from that environment, getting out into fresh air, that's going to do wonders for your health. If you're eating just fried pork fat, chitlins, whatever, and you stop eating that, like the body finally can have this energy to start to digest undigested waste. It can start breaking down and autophagizing, catabolizing waste products in the body and naturally cleaning them out. So you have to understand, the body's a self-healer. It knows exactly what to do, and we just need to give it the conditions to do so. I'll give you one more example. And we talked about scratching. Okay, I just cut my finger. I sliced like the tip of my finger off. It took some of the fingernail. It was bad. It was bleeding.
Oh my
bad,
God.
And it was like super, super scary.
Be careful when you cut fruit. You got to be careful.
This was about 4 weeks ago, and it's like completely healed. I didn't do anything to it. I didn't do anything, Dave. I didn't put any ointment. I didn't put any creams on it.
Yeah, look at that. Hold it up to the screen again.
I barely wore a band. You can kind of see where the nail's still growing back.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't do anything to it. I literally stopped the bleeding with a paper towel, made sure it was clean, and then every day after that, I kept it dry. That's it. And it totally, I'm just watching it every day. All the cells rebuild, the layers of skin build up, the nail growing over it. So that's one great example we can see in our own body. The other one is if you walk into a smoke-filled room, or if you breathe in some particulate, like you'll sneeze. Your body will just eject foreign particles.
Okay.
That's what it's programmed to do. Whether you eat a foreign particle, you breathe one in, or you have some type of physical injury, the body is going to automatically start to repair itself. That's like the biggest secret in health.
So this philosophy of natural hygiene, or this mechanism of how the body works, it's like the average person, their body is like a boxer, and they're against the ropes, right? Like they're just taking all these punches, right? And then so you're taking your body, you're just punching it in the face over and over, and it's against the ropes in the boxing ring. And then as soon as you stop punching your body in the face over and over again, then it starts to eliminate these issues.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. But people are going to have a hard time thinking that they're punching themselves in the face. They're going to have a hard time correlating certain harmful inputs to the fact that it actually is harmful. Because I didn't think that eating meat and bread and oil and salt, I didn't think that was adding anything. I was just always thinking, I'll just poop that out the next day or a couple of days later, and I need all this stuff. But it turns out I was wrong. Like some foods that we're eating chronically, right, every day, we're getting pounded up against the ropes, man, and our body can't breathe, and it can't have any space to heal.
So how do we figure out what is a punch in the face? How does the listener know what if something that they're doing to their body is a punch in the face? What's the mechanism of how do we figure that out?
So a lot of natural hygiene texts go into the chemical processes that happen when we eat certain foods.
Okay. Chemistry.
The chemistry, like we talked a little bit about this in the last segment. What are some of the chemical byproducts of the digestion of protein, especially animal protein? You said uric acid, phosphoric acid, hydrochloric acid. These harsh acids that are toxic. They're biotoxic to the body. So
over acidity, that's a big red flag when we do something in the body and it causes over acidity. Is that one of the things, natural hygiene?
Yeah, they talk about acidosis and the acid versus alkaline relationship between foods. Fruit for the most part has alkaline properties. Even the ones that are known as acid fruits, like citrus, we know lemons and limes to be acidic, but when they're digested, they're left with mineral salts that are alkaline in nature, such as calcium,
magnesium, potassium, and sodium, right? All your alkaline ones.
Exactly. So just the knowledge of that is enough to start like, okay, maybe I should try actually removing some of the acid forming foods, introducing the alkaline foods, and just see how I feel. I mean, it will speak for itself.
Okay. So look at the chemistry. Look at chemistry. That's a big indicator. What about the history of the natural hygiene movement? Because we have this movement in the US and in Europe. I don't know the exact history of it. That's in recent times, but we also have, you look back, you have the Essenes. This goes back 2000 plus years. So what about the history of this knowledge? Is it a hidden knowledge? Is it
It goes way back. This knowledge goes way, way back. There was a Greek goddess, Hygeia, right? She was the goddess of health and cleanliness, and she's sort of an archetype for health and godly health, you know, like perfection in a way. So we can also look to the ancient Greeks. Who was it? Who's the father of medicine? Hippocrates.
Mm-hmm.
Hippocrates wrote about water cures, water treatment, water fasting. His famous quote is, "Let thy food be thy medicine, and the medicine be thy food." He's a little less known for his other quote, "If you feed a man when he was sick, you will feed his sickness." So he was teaching fasting too. He was teaching that when the body is sick, it's a purging process where we're creating all this mucus to actually carry broken down toxins out of the body, germs. And that's just the result of catabolism. I want to explain this real quick.
Yeah, please.
Tilden does a great job of explaining this in Toxemia Explained.
Tilden, wait, which one? Tilden?
Yeah, John Henry Tilden.
Oh, John Henry Tilden. Right, Toxemia.
He wrote Toxemia Explained in 1926. And yes, he explains that metabolism, we've all heard of metabolism. It's the sort of the process by which we like incorporate and build up and break down food and incorporate it into our body. That contains two processes: anabolism, which is the buildup, and catabolism, which is the breakdown. So people should be familiar with the term catabolism, catabolic, catabolic waste. So if you have food in your body, or if you have a toxin in your liver and your body naturally breaks that down, it's catabolizing. And so catabolic waste is a lot of germs. So when you have a quote unquote infection, well, what caused the infection? The modern doctors are going to say that the germs themselves caused it. The natural hygienists are going to say your lifestyle probably caused that. Something that you ate may have caused that. You know, it's hard to tell without seeing where we're at. It could have been poison, it could have been anything. But natural hygienists see waste products, catabolism, catabolic waste, as germs. They're not the cause, they're the effect. So that was a little caveat on just catabolism, breakdown, germs. Do not get into natural hygiene if you don't want the germ theory to be challenged. We live under a germ theory. It's a theory because it's never been proven that these little beasties are the cause of our problems. But natural hygiene has always refuted that, always. So if you want to completely change the way you look at health and disease, check out natural hygiene. I do go deep into the history of it, and I have a podcast episode called WTF is Natural Hygiene on Radial Health, and it's 2 hours of just the main authors and writers of this science. So I go into Hippocrates, I go into Tilden, I go into Herbert Shelton, who was considered one of the main contemporary writers. He died in maybe 40 years ago, but you know, he was active in the last 100 years. So he's one of the main writers of natural hygiene. He wrote the Science and Fine Art of Fasting. He wrote the Science and Fine Art of Natural Hygiene. He wrote the Science and Fine Art of Nutrition. He wrote so many books on natural hygiene, hygienic system, hygienic care for children.
Food combining
made easy. Like, yeah, Herbert Shelton is sort of the biggest natural hygiene writer and proponent. But I also recommend people get into T.C. Fry, because T.C. Fry was sort of Shelton's student, studied with him, and wrote a lot of new information based on the work of Shelton in a way that's much easier to read. Okay. So what Shelton can say in 3 pages, T.C. Fry can say in 1 paragraph. So
And Seth Bailin could say in one sentence.
Sometimes I get a little long-winded, but it is my pleasure to sort of aggregate information and try to deliver it in a simple way. So,
And we'll link to that. We'll link to that. So if you want to know the whole foundations of the natural hygiene movement, it's called WTF is Natural Hygiene on Radical Health Podcast.
yep. Yeah, and I introduced just the main tenets, which are the body's a self-healer, that medicine does nothing except to change a symptom, to cover up a symptom.
Well, even they say that. Even the people who sell the drugs tell you that. It's
Yes.
symptomology, right?
Yep, symptom suppression. It's not addressing the root cause. So natural hygiene addresses the cause. It always goes back to the causal factors, the lifestyle, the diet, the amount of stress you're experiencing. This goes back to the audio mixer analogy with the amount of faders you have. If they're all pushed up and super loud, your master fader is going to be clipping, distorted, and in the red, right? So natural hygiene says, okay, we'll just take all these faders and pull them back, and then the body can heal itself. Because why? It's a natural healer. It's programmed to.
And we are designed to take punches, and we are resilient, right? It's just you get to a point where you're getting so beat up, so relentlessly that the body starts to manifest in problems. And
Yeah.
so let me ask you this. So if we go back and we look through human history,
Mhm.
is this natural hygiene approach, over time you look at history, you have different things going on. You look at the Middle Ages, for example, you have the priest class, and they will offer you remedies, right? But then you have to pay for them, and then it's you have witchcraft, you have these different things that people go to. But has natural hygiene been there all along? Has it been known about widely for people to use as a way to solve health problems? Has it
Yes.
ebbed and flowed? Because this resurgence you're talking about with these writers, this happened the last couple centuries in the United States and Europe, and
Yeah.
as one branch of that.
Yeah. The last couple centuries is accurate, or even more, because the 1800s was sort of a golden age for natural hygiene. A lot of these writers were publishing books and having these practices that were very successful, helping their patients cure from whatever they were, not just treating them. Treating is symptom management.
Mm-hmm.
Curing is removal of cause and just cessation of that old habit that led to it in the first place. So, R.T. Trall was another guy. He was another big writer in the 1800s. He wrote the Hydropathic Encyclopedia, which I only have volume 2. I'm trying to find volume 1 out there, but it's rare. Because it came out in the 1850s. But he started a college of hygiotherapy in like 1852, I think. So there were colleges for natural hygiene. There were these learning centers. There were all these healing centers. Back in the day in Florida, in the last 100 years, there were all these spring water, healing centers. You can go and just lay in the sun, bathe in spring water, eat fruit, bring all the inputs down, do a little bit of supervised fasting, and regenerate. And then you can go back home to where you live and feel better. So yes, there were these institutions and there were these teachers and writers, and I think it was common practice. People kind of knew, oh yeah, fast. Because guess what? Animals know this instinctively.
Okay.
Animals don't need to go to a doctor. When they're sick, they lay down and fast until they feel better, and then they get up and resume their life. We could take a page from that book, but we're so science minded. We love going to our WebMD or our doctor and getting these fancy, potions and drugs to just cover up the symptom at the end of the day. So yes, there was a bigger culture for hygiene, natural hygiene back in the day. And then with the rise of Rockefeller medicine, which they're just the front, you know what I mean? Because there's so much deeper than the Rockefellers. I know we love to blame them for a lot of the industrial monopolies and, the degradation of our natural systems of the world. But I'm just using them as sort of as a catch-all phrase. You can call it the parasite class or the controllers or whatever you want to call them.
You're being nice. Those are the nice terms for them, by the way.
Yeah. And I'll never call them elite. They're not elites. You and I are elite, bro. L means God. It means elevated, elder, elect, right? It's godly. I'm not going to give the parasite class that term. So, but anyways, with the rise of, we call it Rockefeller medicine because their money was behind all of these institutions, the American Medical Association, which started to regulate who can administer medical care, who can administer healthcare, right? And if you don't go through our colleges and our accreditation, we're going to shut you down. So they were in the business of shutting down herbalists, natural hygienists, anything that was against the medical system because they want to sell their drugs. And the drugs all come from the chemical companies, which come from the byproducts of oil and steel, which the Rockefellers, we know they already had a monopoly on that. They said, gee, what do we do with all this chlorine that we're creating from the byproduct of like this production and stuff? Oh, well, we can sell it to the chemical companies. Wait, let's just buy the chemical companies. So now we own the entire industry. And so now that entire industry encompasses drugs, which is like a multi-trillion dollar per year industry, not just for humans, but for livestock, farm animals. Like it's crazy how much drugs are being sold. So with the rise of that industry, it was really hard for these natural hygiene centers and these natural healing teachers to even work. You couldn't work anymore because you get shut down, you get arrested. Even Shelton got thrown in jail a few times, I think, because there was an active, very active campaign to discredit, destroy anyone that was against the medical mafia. Yes. So Dave, I do think, just to answer your question, there was a culture for this, and there still is, and it's always been there. It's just now it's just underground because the mainstream is so loud that we have to go underground to find this information.
And do you think by some extent it's been wiped from history when history is explained, that this part is kind of left out? Because you hear anecdotes. For example, I did an interview with Karen Ramsey. Her grandmother had such bad pneumonia in the 1920s. The medical doctors told her she was a goner, basically.
Mm-hmm.
She went to the natural hygiene people and completely cured it, lived into her 80s, and this was something that, it was an anecdote of something that this actually happened with. But I think people don't realize that this has been there throughout history, and that. But do you think it's been suppressed? I mean, or censored, or?
I know it has. I know it 1,000%. If you Google natural hygiene, one of the first clicks you're going to get is quackwatch.org, and it's a whole article. It kind of actually outlines the history of natural hygiene pretty well. But then at the end, he writes like the fact that his leaving out milk from the diet is an invitation to osteoporosis. So he basically caps the entire article on natural hygiene with, yeah, you're going to get osteoporosis if you do this.
Because you don't drink milk, which is one of the worst things you could consume.
Yeah, so it's Quackwatch is right up there, the first hit on Google, first or second hit, and there is an active campaign to destroy, discredit, and cover up these natural healing modalities. Why? Because you can't really make money on it. I mean, sure, I can make money coaching somebody and guiding them through natural healing practices, but this is like innate information.
Okay, but here's the problem with that business, right? And you know this, and I know this, but okay, so you coach someone, and maybe they pay you coaching fee, or they buy a course, or they buy a book, or they get well, and then that's it. They're no longer a customer, right? You lose that customer because now they're healthy for another, however many decades, versus you could sell someone a product every day that they have to take for the rest of their life. I mean, is that why that business model is so makes these people salivate?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there's no cure with Western medicine. There's only coming back every week, like you said. All you have to do is talk to someone who goes to the VA, the Veterans Association. They're just always pushing these pills, and they're never talking about diet. And in fact, I got a friend who goes to the VA. He's dealt with a lot of problems, obesity, and we're giving him these protein shakes. And he's like, check out what they gave me. He gave me a whole case. I just read the ingredients out loud. First thing I went to is the ingredients list. I'm like, dextrose, high fructose corn syrup, whey powder. I'm like, polysorbate. I'm like, do you know what this stuff is? He's like, what is all that? I'm like, yeah, dude, you don't even know what you're eating. So anyways, yes.
Wow.
Yes, there's a huge campaign to discredit this stuff, man. And because a patient cured is a customer lost,
Yeah.
And so the fact that our culture is so hung up on money and customers and just commerce, yeah, this is why you also see a lot of truthers out there selling their herbs and stuff. It's like, it's the same thing. They're trying to sell you a cure, but it's like, you got to take the herbs all the time. There's never a time where you just stop because I'm better, because then it wouldn't have been the herb in the first place, right? So, and this is also why I don't coach people. I'm not a health coach.
I don't either, really. Yeah.
Yeah, we just like to share information. People can do with it what they want. But yeah, I do think that it's so lucrative to be in medicine, because it's repetitive, and every day, every year, you're not addressing the issue. You're not helping the customer, the patient cure anything.
Wow. We're talking with Seth Baillin. Seth is host of Radical Health and author of The Fruit Companion. Seth is also going to be speaking at Texas Fruit Festival, texasfruitfestival.com. I wanted to ask you about the overlap between natural hygiene and what now is called raw vegan. Raw vegan, that wasn't even a term, several decades ago, but this fruit-based approach to nutrition and / raw vegan, what's the overlap between that and natural hygiene?
It's a great question. Since the main tenets of natural hygiene are the body is a self-healer, and when we get out of the way, the body can heal, and it gives you different ways to get out of your own way. One of them is with food. So there's a huge overlap between natural hygiene and raw veganism, where we're all just removing the burden of cooked animal-based foods. So that most natural hygienists agree on. However, it does get, you can read some of Shelton's books, and he writes about cottage cheese. He writes about eggs. He writes about milk cheese, because these are things that they were eating 100 years ago that were actually better quality than they are now. I know, I don't want even the most grass-fed milk. I have no need for milk in my life.
It wasn't pasteurized even then.
Right. But if I'm going to drink milk, it's, from a cow, it will for sure be unpasteurized.
Right.
Quality.
Changes the chemistry dramatically.
Yeah. So we just have to understand that when these people were writing in the 1800s and the early 1900s, they were sort of writing to the commoner who ate a lot of cheese, and maybe there was no good infrastructure to get pineapples up to Minnesota or whatever. Right. So you got to just keep in mind that when you read some of the old natural hygiene texts, they're going to talk about animal-based foods and even incorporate them in some of their meal plans. But what you should take away is the philosophy.
Okay.
The philosophy of food combining. The philosophy of, and that's another thing that raw vegan kind of overlaps with. The raw vegans know the value of mono meals. They know the value of eating one fruit until you're satisfied, because that's what the gut loves the best. That's what's the most natural. It's not very common to find a banana tree next to a starfruit tree and just have both of them. You're probably going to find
it's good food combining to do that. I mean, in other words, mono meal, that's the ideal food combining.
Yes.
It's not, you're not doing any food combining with other things.
Yeah. And calling back to the ingredients lists, just, you can, some breakfasts, whatever, it's like a little packaged food. It might have 30 ingredients in it. You compare that to a 1 ingredient meal, bananas. It's so remarkably different on our digestive system that's a way to remove the burden. So that's what raw veganism, I think, overlaps with natural hygiene, is that we recognize the power of what we put in our mouths. We recognize the power that we have as individuals, that it's up to us to be healthy, and it's no one else's responsibility, right? Whereas the mainstream and standard American lifestyle, they love to pin the blame on you. Oh, you need to wear a mask because you're going to get me sick. Bro, look what's in your shopping cart. You think I have an effect on what's going to make you sick? Like, we all have the power to put anything we want in our mouth or not. So I think that's probably the main overlap is the food aspect, and to keep the internal terrain clean. So hygiene just means cleanliness, right? When you eat a banana, it's clean. Your poop is clean. It doesn't stink. It doesn't leave, even residue on the paper sometimes. Like, people have a hard time believing this, but when you start eating fresh, raw, ripe, juicy fruit, like, your poop doesn't stink as much, and everything's just cleaner. So it's an internal cleanliness. It's an internal hygiene. That I think is the main overlap.
That's why it's called Toxemia Explained. It's talking about toxicity. It's talking about when the body is overloaded with all these toxic materials, and it becomes like a sludge, and it's literally dirty, and that's when the cells can't breathe, and you start to have
specifically the blood, because emia is a suffix for blood.
Okay.
Hypoglycemia, leukemia, toxemia. Anytime you see emia, it just means of blood. So put those words together. Toxemia is toxic blood. So yes, you're right. And blood delivers to all of our cells. So you're totally right that, yes, they're just recognizing that we're creating this acidic, sludgy, fatty, cholesterol laden, slow blood system that is then poisoning the rest of our body. And if you would just allow the body to regenerate itself, you know how we rebuild blood all the time. You could lose a couple pints of blood and tomorrow it'll be fine. So, and what is blood mostly? Water. What are fruits mostly? Water, right? So yes, it's the internal hygiene is turned on when we stop eating greasy, salty, cooked food that, hey, that stuff's great in survival mode. I'm trapped in a tundra and I got some packets of granola and like potatoes to cook. Like, yeah, I'm going to eat those. Are you kidding me? Survival mode. Or if the only thing I can find is some fish in a river, it's like, am I going to eat that? And I'm starving? Yeah, probably. Yeah. But I'm not in survival mode. I don't need to.
For alcohol, that's why they used to ferment alcohol, because it would store through the winter.
Yeah. And like sauerkraut and kimchi, anything fermented, that way, like a probiotic or whatever that they call it. That's all for storage too. That's all for preservation. That's not for the health benefit. That's just so that it wouldn't go bad. Like, you can't eat the cabbage fresh all the time. So.
Wow. Well, Seth Baillin, we really appreciate you, and it's cool that you're because not everyone is going to do what you did. And I'm similar too. I like to research and investigate, and but a lot of people out there, they're like, you know what, I'm not going to read these texts from the 1800s and just tell me what was in it. So I think this is greatly valuable. What's your parting advice to somebody who, let's say they're in that phase, they start to get it, they start to understand, hey, I have control. It's not outside of my control, these things happen in my body, and I'm going to figure out how to lessen these inputs, how to stop taking as many punches, so that I can give my body the chance to activate its self-healing mechanism. Any final advice to that person on navigating that? Because we're not saying it's easy to do that. We're just saying that's how it works. Then you have to actually do it. But any advice that someone to actually implement this and to make this actually happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main thing I want to say is listen to your body, because the body not only is a self-healer, but it's a very sensitive feedback tool. Like, it tells you all about your environment and it tells you all about what you're eating. Unfortunately, we've become a little disconnected from the signals our body sends us. But when you start listening to your body, you're gonna eat a little something and just check in. And so, how am I feeling? How does that make me feel? I got a little bit of an asthma flare up, or it hurt my stomach, or I got a headache after eating that, or I had to take a nap after eating that, or wow, I ate that and I feel great. I ate that and I had so much energy. Or a lot of times it's hard to tell what is a stimulant versus what is like nourishing, and so it can be tricky to listen to your body, right? To the heroin user, heroin's going to feel great, right? But there's also probably a feeling in them that goes, I shouldn't be doing this. I want to be out of this addiction, da, 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 da. So listen to your body send you these subtle signals of no, or yes, or, you know, we love looking for information from outside. We love asking the pros and the experts and the doctors about what should I eat, what should I do? But a lot of this info is going to come from you and your own feedback of your own highly intelligent body. So yeah, listen to your body and see what fruits make you feel. You know, they may make you feel bloated at first, but hey, after a couple times, that may pass, and then you start feeling the other things. And so now, like, I can take a little bit of food and know intrinsically, like, I probably shouldn't eat that because of the reaction I get from my body. Or your mind will just whisper to you, like yes and no sometimes. So I think
it does come in a whisper more often than not, right? Your body's not gonna be like, hey, do this. It is subtle, right? It takes time to develop this discernment.
I think it's very subtle. Yeah, it whispers to me, like, and so that's why you have to kind of train yourself to listen to certain like subtle, sensitive energy and really just tune in to your environment. And even, I mean, you can do this not just with food, but let's say you're in a relationship with a friend and you know, you still get these nagging thoughts of like, oh, I'm treating this person kind of like a dick. Like I said something to them, I want to apologize. Like, yeah, that's your body's telling you something. So I think we can regain our intuitive knowledge by listening to ourselves more. So, you know, you can try fasting, you can try fruits, you can try exercise, you can try reading, you can do all this stuff. But honestly, I think the biggest authority and the best authority is here and here, the head and the heart.
Wow. Amazing. Seth Bailin, SethBailin.com, Radical Health Podcast, and author of The Fruit Companion, and also speaker at Texas Fruit Festival, TexasFruitFestival.com. Super excited and man, just so grateful for you sharing your information with us. Thank you so much, Seth Bailin.
Dave, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. Can't wait for the Texas Fruit Fest. That's going to be awesome. I plan on hanging out a few days before and after too, just to soak it all in. And I can't wait, man. And your show is great. Keep it up. Thanks for all the amazing questions. And I'm so happy to have been able to share this information today.
All right, Seth. Well, we'll see you. We'll see you in Austin.
Sounds good, brother.
For more information, please follow at Rapid Regeneration or visit rapidregeneration.com.